Abdelhamid, welcome back. All right, good afternoon. Just a programming note, tomorrow at 1:15, we'll have Izumi Nakamitsu, the Undersecretary General and High Representative for Disarmament Affairs. She will be here to speak to you on the 11th Review Conference of the Parties to the Treaty on the Non-Proliferation of Nuclear Weapons. This morning in the Security Council, Carlos Ruiz-Massieu briefed on the situation in Haiti. He said that Haiti stands at a pivotal moment where political and institutional progress is laying the foundations for a credible path forward. Haitian stakeholders are clear, he said, that elections remain the only legitimate path back to constitutional order, and our political mission continues to support national efforts and to coordinate international assistance to help deliver credible and inclusive elections in the country. But without tangible improvements on the security front, progress will be difficult to sustain. As national security forces continue to be strengthened, the full and timely deployment of the gang suppression force is essential to reinforce these efforts. He added that council members he told council members that with sustained national commitment and coordinated international support, it is possible to turn this critical phase into a genuine turning point for Haiti. He renewed our commitments to work alongside Haitian authorities to help turn this window of opportunity into tangible progress, restoring security and reestablishing democratic institutions. And an update from our end on the trust fund for the gang suppression force. The state of Qatar has confirmed a pledge of $30 million to the trust fund, with $10 million to be paid over 3 years. We thank Qatar for their support of the gang suppression force in Haiti. The trust fund has now received a total of $203.3 million, with $174.1 million in cash. And we expect Mr. Ruiz-Massieu to go to the stakeout to speak to you after consultations are done, so probably around 1:15 or so. Turning to Lebanon, you saw that yesterday afternoon we issued a statement in which the Secretary General said he was saddened to learn of the death of a second French peacekeeper in the attack that happened on April 18th, where peacekeepers came under fire from a non-state actor presumed to be Hezbollah. Corporal Anissé Girardin succumbed to his wounds in Paris yesterday. Also on the situation in Lebanon, I can tell you that we condemn the killing of the Lebanese journalist Amal Khalil in a reported Israeli airstrike in Tiri in southern Lebanon that took place yesterday. We extend our condolences to the family, friends, and the colleagues of Amal, and we express our hopes for a full and swift recovery of the second journalist who was injured in the same incident. Following the strike, our colleagues at UNIFIL contributed to the deconfliction efforts with the Israeli Defense Forces to facilitate access for the Lebanese Red Cross to provide support to the injured journalist. The Secretary General recalls that civilians, including journalists, must be respected and protected at all times. He calls for a prompt and impartial investigation to this killing. Targeting civilians and obstructing aid are violations of international humanitarian law. He reiterates that journalists must be able to perform their essential duties without fears of interference, harassment, or worse. And as an update on the resupply issue I raised over the past few days, following further deconfliction efforts with the IDF, UNIFIL was able to resupply several of its isolated positions along the Blue Line. On the humanitarian fronts, I can tell you that humanitarian needs remain severe and the operating environment in Lebanon highly fragile. Since the ceasefire, many people remain displaced and their access to essential services remains restricted. OCHA says that damage to bridges and other critical infrastructure, as well as displacement orders and the presence of unexploded ordnances and other risks, continue to limit people's ability to move and complicates aid delivery, especially in southern Lebanon. Despite these constraints, our partners continue to reach hard-to-access communities. Since yesterday, 5 more humanitarian operations have been carried out through the OCHA-managed humanitarian notification system, bringing the total number of humanitarian movements facilitated to 80 since the start of the conflict. Our partners report that water had been delivered to support more than 600,000 people, alongside fuel to keep critical water services running. Our health partners tell us that they are supporting authorities to provide primary healthcare services for displaced people, including some 190,000 consultations and essential medication for acute and chronic conditions to over 70,000 people. Our partners working in education and protection report that they continue to support displaced children through psychosocial activities, recreational sport, and alternative learning options. Funding, as you can imagine, is essential, and as you can also imagine, we need more of it. The response remains underfunded. Lebanon flash appeal is currently only 30% funded, with $94 million received out of the $308 million required. Turning to Gaza, the Office of the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs say that continued reports of strikes, shelling, and gunfire in residential areas are increasing concerns for the safety of civilians. Yesterday, our colleagues received reports of children killed in North Gaza, where a tent was hit in a strike. OCHA reiterates that under international humanitarian law, civilians or civilian infrastructure must be protected at all times. On food security, we and our partners continue to distribute meals, bread, and other supplies. That includes in areas that are hard to reach. As of Monday, our partners were serving about 1.1 meals and producing about 230 metric tons of bread each and every day. This is achieved in collaboration with more than 120 kitchens, commercial bakeries, and so-called community ovens. Still, our colleagues from the World Food Program warn that every fifth family in Gaza eats just one meal per day. Turning to the West Bank, we continue to receive very alarming reports of settler-related violence, which is causing Palestinian casualties and material damage as well as displacement. Recent attacks have particularly affected education facilities. On Tuesday, a school in Ramallah area came under fire by Israeli settlers, and one child was reportedly killed. Earlier in the day, settlers demolished a school serving some 60 girls and boys in the Jordan Valley. And in Hebron area, settlers have recently obstructed access of a similar numbers of students for about 10 days. Our humanitarian partners are providing psychosocial support for the students impacted. And our partners warn that children in the West Bank are seeing more violence in and around their schools. This puts them at risk and makes it harder for them to continue learning. We underscore the urgent need to protect and restore every child's access to education. Turning to Yemen, and in further reference to what I told you yesterday about our ongoing efforts to help secure the release of 73 of our colleagues who continue to be arbitrarily detained by the Houthis. Some have been held for years. Just some additional details to share with you. As part of these ongoing efforts, our senior officials leading the regional engagement on arbitrary detention, Muin Shreim, was in Muscat earlier this week on Tuesday. There he met with Ansar Allah's Mohammed Abdul Salam and with Omani officials and a number of resident ambassadors. The discussions focused on the immediate and unconditional release of all UN personnel detained by the Houthis. This follows Muin's recent visit to Riyadh, where he met with the president of the Presidential Leadership Council, Rashad al-Halimi, as well as senior Saudi government officials, also ambassadors representing the permanent members of the Security Council. Our intensified and coordinated efforts to resolve this issue as swiftly as possible will continue, and we'll keep you updated on Muin's contacts as they happen. Once again, we call for the immediate and unconditional release of all arbitrarily detained personnel, not only from the UN, but also NGOs, civil society, and diplomatic missions. We and our partners should never be targeted or detained while carrying out our mandates for the benefit of the people we are serving. These detentions directly impact millions of Yemenis in need, limiting their access to critical assistance. A couple of notes from the Central African Republic, where the peacekeepers are working on preparations for the legislative elections and by-elections scheduled this Sunday. As of today, 29 metric tons of electoral material have been delivered via air and land to multiple locations across the CAR, and thankfully without any reported incidents. The second phase is now ongoing, with materials being delivered from UN peacekeeping bases to local branches of the National Election Authority. Completion is expected in the coming days. The mission is also supporting the transportation of electoral personnel, enabling hundreds of national electoral staff to reach their polling stations all across the CAR. Preparations for the processing of results also continues at the National Data Tabulation Center with support from the Peacekeepers and UNDP. This includes software testing and capacity building for national staff. On the security front, coordination continues under the Integrated Election Security Plan. Peacekeeping mission is supporting national defense and security forces, including through airlift assistance to particularly sensitive areas in the country. The mission also continues to support civic education, efforts promoting peaceful participation and inclusion, including to support the participation of women in these polls. MINUSCA remains engaged alongside national authorities to support peaceful, inclusive, and credible elections scheduled to take place on Sunday, as I mentioned. On the humanitarian front, our OCHA colleagues tell us that 41,000 people in the CAR central and northern areas will lose access to life-saving healthcare services by June due to funding shortfalls. Our main health partners, the International Medical Corps, which supports displaced people in these regions, is expected to halt its activities due to lack of funds. People in displacement sites and return areas will face disruptions to free medical consultations and referral to specialized medical care. More broadly, they say that severe underfunding continues to impact humanitarian operations across the country. Since July of last year, an average of 10 humanitarian field offices have closed each month, limiting the reach of assistance to people who need it. To date, only 14% of the $264 million required to assist 1.3 million people in the CARs most vulnerable in this year has been received. OCHA urgently calls on donors to step up and to funding now to prevent further disruptions to essential humanitarian operations that protect lives and support recovery. And we reiterate the need for safe, sustained, and unhindered humanitarian access across the country. Just to flag that yesterday evening, our friend Volker Turk, the High Commissioner for Human Rights, concluded his visit to Mexico. While in the country, he held bilateral meetings with several government officials, including President Claudia Sheinbaum. Mr. Turk also had meetings with civil society, indigenous peoples, the private sector, and collective victims of human rights violations, including families of disappeared people, noting that disappearances remain one of the most serious and painful human rights challenges in Mexico, and it must be addressed in a way that is not politicized nor polarized, and for victims to remain at the center of that work. He also addressed issues of violence against journalists, human rights defenders, especially women, also issues of impunity and judicial reform. A couple more notes for you. The UN Trade and Development people at Unctad released the new data showing that the gross domestic product alone does not fully how an economy is reflect fully how an economy is developing. Instead, it highlights the broader concept called productive capacity, which includes skills, strong institutions, and infrastructure. According to Unctad, while some developing countries are making progress, many are still stuck exporting basic and low-value goods. However, building industries that add more value to the economy is key. Chris, I've got two quizzes for you. I've got a bonus quiz on International Language Days. We're marking 2 International Linguistic Days today. Both are linked, yes, okay, English and? No. Spanish. Do you know why they are both days are being marked on the same day? The key is the year 1616. All right, smarty pants. 2 writers who are critical for the advancement of their respective languages died that year. Shakespeare, yes, and who else?
It's his birthday today.
Just shui shui. Who else? Cervantes, exactly. Cervantes died on April 22nd, 1616, and Shakespeare died on April 23, 1616, which was also the date of his birth in 1564. This is why we mark both days today. Now, financial contribution. In 1964, a young man named Farouk Bulsara left this country to go to the United Kingdom, and he settled in the UK. Yes, very good. Why is it Tanzania? Who is Farouk Bulsara? Exactly. Freddie Mercury. All right, so we thank our friends in Dodoma. Chris, you were humiliated today. Very, very, very good, Noreen, very good. So let's not forget to thank our friends at Dodoma for their full payment of the regular budget. Tanzania paid $317,897. We thank them for every penny. Noreen, do you have a question?
I would like to yield my question to Associated Press.
Okay, Edie, please.
Thank you very much, Steph. And I did like Freddie Mercury also, but never knew that was his name. On the visit to Oman, we know that the Houthis have a delegation there usually. Is the UN envoy planning to have any discussions directly with the Houthis?
Yes, he met with his counterpart, the point person for who is our point person, and that is Mohammed Abdusalam, who's the Houthis' point person for us on dealing with our detained colleagues.
And was there any positive outcome from that meeting?
The discussions are ongoing, and our colleagues sadly remain detained with no reason.
And on Gaza, are both Kerem Shalom and Zikim still open? And what's the status of trying to get cargo through Rafah? I assume medical evacuations are still taking place.
Yeah, no cargo through Rafah. Karim Shalom and Zikim remain technically open, though they may have been closed for Independence Day in Israel. They've been closed for a number of Israeli holidays, but they remain open. Madame.
Thank you. On Amal Khalil, we just heard your statement. According to CPJ numbers, tracking back to 1992, Israel has been responsible for more journalists and media worker deaths than any other country. And on Amal Khalil specifically, it is apparently a deliberate, targeting. The Red Cross was prevented for 7 hours from reaching the site. Is it time to call a spade and be more forceful in criticism towards a member state that is actually committing a war crime?
I think we've been very clear in condemning this in what appeared to us to be an Israeli airstrike. We know there was difficulty in the Red Cross accessing the site. And that's why our UNIFIL colleagues working with the IDF did the usual deconfliction, so her body could be recovered, and that her colleague, a photographer, was able to be evacuated. But I think the Secretary General has been very clear in condemning the killings of journalists.
And CPJ are calling for an international investigation. Is this something that you would support and agree with?
The initial. There are mechanisms before we get to that. They need to be followed. You know that it's not the Secretary General himself cannot organize without a mandate an international investigations. However, journalist advocacy groups, including CPJ and others, Reporters Without Borders, have also an important role to play in ensuring that the killing of journalists does not go unnoticed or unpunished. Linda.
Oh, thank you.
Your microphone, please.
Thank you, Steph. Following up actually on Edie's question about the Houthis and the detained staff, I was just wondering how long again have the staff been detained? From the longest period, and are the Houthis the biggest detainers of UN staff and diplomatic staff at this juncture?
They are the biggest detainer of UN staff. Yes.
They are.
Yeah. And some of them, I don't have I could look at the dates. Some of them have been held for a long, long time. I'll get you the exact dates.
But what else can the UN do? I mean, should the Security Council be
Well, I mean, you know,
calling on them directly
I think
again?
I think it's a very valid question. As you know, we don't really have much leverage, except to ensure that they're not forgotten, to ensure that we continue to do whatever we can. But every member state, especially those in the region that may have an influence over them or may have any sort of contact or relationship with the de facto authorities, need to put pressure on them to get them released. These 73 people are working for the United Nations, right? They were conducting the work on behalf of this organization, made up of 193 member states and 2 observer states. All of them who can help should be helping. Benny.
On Lebanon, any thought of today's second round of talks between Israel and Lebanon? And I have a follow-up.
Well, we very much welcome these talks. We hope they will have a positive outcome. We stand ready to support in any way we can. But direct talks between Israel and Lebanon are by definition a good thing.
Any follow-up, any thought about the Lebanese law that bans any contact with Israelis and could actually land the Lebanese ambassador in jail for technically?
We always believe in diplomacy and support diplomacy and dialogue in all its form.
Including if it violates law.
Including in this room. Abdelhamid.
Thank you, Stéphane. I really sometimes question my wisdom to keep asking about Palestinian casualties. But I have to mention a few. Now, just a few hours ago, a child of 15-year-old in the village of Tel, near Nablus, was gunned down by the Israeli army, not by the settler, this one. But yesterday, in the town of Deir Dibwan, Auda Atif Awawda was gunned down by the settler. He was defending his farm. They came to take his goats. And his father was trying to push the settlers, and they shot him and killed him. He's a father of a twin girls who just born in February. And the child you mentioned, too, Aus Na'san, in the village of Mghayr, he was killed in his school. He's 13. So where are we going? What the Palestinian can do? Are they entitled to defend themselves against the settlers?
We have repeatedly condemned this violence. Like we condemn the killing of children all around the world. We're seeing all of these wars we're seeing, it is the civilians that are paying the ultimate price. It is children that are paying the ultimate price. They're those who are most vulnerable who are paying the ultimate price. We keep raising the issue. We keep condemning it. But you also need to ask those questions of all the people who have their fingers on the trigger. Yeah.
Thank you, Stéphane. Do you have any update on Jean Arnaud's movements in the region? Is he still in Egypt?
No, he's in Turkey, and as soon as we have some clarity on his next stop, we will share that with you. Okay. Yes, Pan.
Thank you, Steph. It has almost been 1 month since the SG established the task force for the Strait of Hormuz. So can you update us on the progress of the task force?
Jorge Moreira de Silva of UNOPS is continuing his work, continuing his consultations. Obviously, for this to be operationalized, we need the agreement of all concerned parties, and as those discussions are ongoing. But there is no lack of efforts on his part. Okay, Islam, we'll go online.
Thank you, Stéphane. I have a question on Yemen and Lebanon. On Yemen first, a few months ago, Houthis had announced that they would put trial on detained UN workers. And as far as I remember, you had said that you follow up closely the process. So is there any detail on that? If the court process is still going on, how many UN workers are put on a trial. Can you give us any detail? If is there any new developments on that?
There are court processes going on in a number of cases, but the fact remains that all 73 of them remain arbitrarily detained. Your question on Lebanon.
And on Lebanon, a couple questions actually. First question, does the UN keep any record on killed journalists, especially since March in southern Lebanon?
We don't have a tally, but I think we don't have a UN tally, but I think that tally is well reported by a number of journalist organizations and news organizations themselves.
And last question on Lebanon, OHCHR special rapporteur on housing, Balakrishnan Rajagopal, I hope I am pronouncing right, given an interview on AA in Geneva and said that, quote, Israel's planned attacks on southern Lebanon in 2026 differ significantly from the past attacks because their tactics are very similar to campaign in Gaza. As you may remember, in March, Israeli defense minister had said that they would demolish houses in Lebanon with Gaza style. Does the Secretary General really concerned that South Lebanon may turn out to be like a Gaza if it's has not yet?
Look, we're seeing an unprecedented level of destruction. I think the Secretary General has been very clear in speaking to a number of places that southern Lebanon cannot be another Gaza. But as you mentioned, we have seen statements from senior Israeli leaders themselves on the way they're framing this campaign. Okay, on that note.